County Board of Supervisors meeting this day, May 22nd, 2018. It's good to see everybody this morning. We're going to pause briefly for a moment of reflection. Thank you. Supervisor Hemmingson, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, do we have any introduction of new employees today? Okay. Liz, anything to report out of closed session?
Yes, with a motion by Supervisor Cowan and a second by Supervisor Hemmingson, the board voted 5-0 to deny the written demand for cure and correct action of an alleged Brown Act violation pursuant to Government Code 54960.1.
Thank you very much.
And the chair to author a letter.
Thank you, Liz. All right, at this time, I'd like to request any deletions, corrections, or additions from the board members to the agenda. Do we have anything we'd like to consider today in addition? I did have one item that came in late. I believe the entire board received the request from Roxanne Haynes. I didn't know if anybody had wanted to put that on the agenda last minute, but it was a request for comment to the board if we wanted to submit a proposal to USDA, which was due next week on the 25th, I believe, to seek grant funds to do economic analysis where there's a 20% match available from CalEd. Is that something that the board would like to address? I know we all received it yesterday, kind of last minute, but I didn't know how best.
You need a motion, Mr. Chair?
If we do want to receive it.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Public comment. Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board, and this is to add a letter to the discussion today concerning a response for a request to proposals. What's that? Who? Oh, hi. This is specifically for one agenda item, not our normal public comment. No worries. So this is specifically to add to today's agenda a letter that would go to USDA California to pursue grant opportunities specific to economic development for Del Norte County, as requested by the Del Norte Economic Development Authority. All right, Kylie, please pull the vote.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. Jay, we'll put that on towards the end of the agenda. If you could have some materials ready for folks, we might pause for recess in case.
Yeah, I believe the clerk of the board has a copy of it.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. All right, we are a little before our time public comment, so let's go ahead and move forward with the consent agenda items at this time. And open it up for public comment. And these are items 1 through 11 on our agenda. Okay, seeing no public comment, we'll go ahead and... No, it's not general public comments on our consent agenda. Items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 on our agenda. Okay. So, seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board. Do we have a motion from the board?
So moved.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Kylie, can you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes, I need to recuse myself on item number 5, conflict of interest.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. Thank you very much. And right on time, let's go ahead and move on with our 10:05 timed agenda item, which is public comment. Members of the public may address the board on matters which are within the jurisdiction of the board. If you are addressing the board regarding a matter listed on the agenda, you may be asked to hold your comments until the board takes up that matter. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. And for those of you that haven't done this in the past, the timer's right here to your left when you're at the dais. When the light goes to yellow, you have a minute left. When it goes to red, you have about 10 seconds.
Yes, I'm Donna Thompson,
Good
and
morning,
I live
Donna.
in Crescent City. And I haven't been to a meeting for a while, and I've forgotten the whole thing, but I'm not completely senile, so sorry
No
about
worries.
that. I've been paying attention to and wondering about our Sitka Spruce Grove out there across from South Beach for quite a while. I can't stay later, so I'm going to want to make my comment now.
Perfectly fine.
Just to support you in sending in your letter and approving of Caltrans and the acquisition. I think it's a win-win for them and for us and for our beautiful scenic entrance to the city. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Donna. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Ronald Thompson, husband of Donna Thompson. I also support the acquisition of the Sitka Spruce Groves by Caltrans. I don't know what the mitigation was if we're getting it, because we're getting it, but we're getting it, I hope. Anyhow, I've looked at that grove, and I've always wanted to walk around in it. And I've learned that there are some iterated trees. I mean, it's like the trunk is here, but then there's a huge branches that come out of it, make some very attractive Sitka spruce. And sort of like a woman whose torso is here and beautiful limbs come out. And so I'd like to get in there and see that place sometime. And I hope it isn't spoiled by either public overusing it or being completely cut off. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ronald. Public comment.
Well, I come bearing gifts this morning.
Gifts are great. We welcome them.
There's 2 in there for each of you, along with a copy of what I'm going to read to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Lynn Sullins. I live at 205 Garrett Way in Crescent City. I'm sorry, it's been a rough year. I am here to present you with 2 books. The first is Make Your Bed by retired Admiral McCraven. The second is All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. If you only read the chapter titles in the Make Your Bed book and page 2 of All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten, I think you will be moved. I realize not all of you are up for election or re-election, but I hope you will let these books make a difference in the way you conduct yourselves while in the office the people of Del Norte County have elected you to. I also hope you realize once you are elected or re-elected, you will understand you not only serve your district, but also the entire county. This is not one political party against another. We are all in this together. There are a number of issues facing our county, our state, and our nation. And sometimes it has to start at the bottom, not at the top. What are we going to do about Highway 101? I have been asking this question since I moved here in 1989. I'm sorry. What are we going to do about our homeless, our veterans, our churches, our schools, education of our youth, and further education to advance adults in their lives, businesses, or careers? Our hospital and physicians, our businesses that come and go, our environment, including not only our forests, but our rivers, oceans, and the creatures that live therein. We must concern ourselves with the safety of our community, our children, our elderly, people who are ill, people who need help and assistance, and all who live within the borders of this county. Living life is not just about money and having more things than your friends or neighbors. It is about being a better person and helping others. Please remember these things while you are serving this community. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you for your words, Lynn. We'll take that to heart today. And thank you for the gifts. Public comment.
Good morning. I'm Angelina Countess Bieber, Smith River. I'm here regarding the second delay of SB 54. I'm very passionate about it, and I want to see that this item gets back on the agenda. There has been a lot of firestorm. Oh, first I'd like to congratulate Bob Berkowitz on the NACO award that I read this morning. That's great. You guys need to work together. I'm sure you guys are good people, but that's not what we're seeing in this community. There's a lot of dissension and gridlock, and I am going to point to the majority voters here. Lori, Chris, and Jerry, you guys are gridlocking very important issues. We have big problems in this community, and we feel like we're getting ignored. In October, you abstained from SB 54 before it was an unconstitutional law with a 2-1-2 vote, and on the 24th of April, 7 months later, you guys table it again. Several cities are joining in to opt out. This is a very dangerous law, and there's things that you can do to get out of this. You can join the amicus brief, which does not cost us any money. You can talk to your constituents local in this state, or speak with the president. There are things that you can do to make this happen. We have excessive debt, we have excessive homelessness, we have overworked and underpaid law enforcement. We cannot afford to infringe on this community with criminality and more debt with not taking action. You're putting us susceptible to inviting illegal aliens to come here. They know how the system works. If we're the last ones that are not opting out, those illegal aliens will find the cities and counties that haven't opted out. Liberal attorneys are guiding them on where to go. Butte County has already opted out, and it's moving in Northern California. I wish that you guys would take action on this and lead us. You guys are here to serve the people. What is for the greater good of the people, and to defend the Constitution. If you do those two things, you cannot go wrong. You guys need to put aside personal feelings and agendas and groups and work for what is better, not vote against a constituent that you don't like or something that is for your own benefit. It is for the greater good. And a lot of young people are frustrated, and they feel like we can't get up and out of this trench of lack of economic growth and safety. And I would please request that you put it back on the agenda and take action. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to see this item. Lots happened since the last time we took a look at it. Lots of dynamics going on in this SB 54. I'd like to see it back on the agenda. And one of the suggestions was a writ of an amicus brief, which is no cost to the county and doesn't require constitutionality. If that was the question before, I'd like to see it on our next agenda.
Thank you, Supervisor. Please.
Basically, I'm here to say the same thing. I think you should put it back on the agenda and either pass an amicus brief or some kind of a resolution. I think you need to go on record on this. And last time we discussed this, there was a concern about conflict between the California Constitution and the U.S. Constitution. And I'd like to point out that the California Constitution says the state of California is an inseparable part of the United States of America, and the U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So there is no conflict between those two constitutions. The conflict is within our own state. And don't you kind of find it odd that after 9/11, we kind of adopted this thing of see something, say something? But with this issue, it's see something, uh-oh, I didn't see anything. You know, we need to have law and order in our community. That's just the basis of a lot of, you know, safety and issues. And this needs to be worked on. And also, I find it a problem that it's a concern with me with freedom of speech. Last time, it seemed like you were getting close to making some kind of a statement where at least you said there was a concern, but then it gets to our county council and we have to worry about all these legal in and outs just to make a statement. So I don't know where the weak link is, but that is a problem. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Paulette. Good
Good
morning.
morning. I'm Liz Freeman, District 5. Bob Berkowitz is my representative. I want to just second what Angelina has said and also what Paulette has said. I would like to see this sanctuary state issue back on the agenda. I would like to see our board, our elected board, take action to at least help give us the opportunity to opt out of this sanctuary state. We want law and order in Del Norte County. God knows that we have a difficult time with that right now, and it's an ongoing thing with the situation in our law enforcement in this area. Maybe they need a raise. I don't know quite how to address that, but I'm not into that right now. But what I am asking is the Board of Supervisors put it back on, the sanctuary state issue back on the agenda, that we can have a vote, and I urge each one of you to vote to opt out of this. Join into this with the other counties who are doing this. Let's take a stand for the state of California. We're losing our golden state, and we don't want to do that. I just heard yesterday that another business, I think it was Weatherby, has left California, going to Wyoming, taking all of their workers, everything else. California is going, we think it's in trouble now. Wait until this becomes really active and involved and open, and it's a sanctuary state. Law and order will be a thing of the past. Please protect us and our community. We want Del Norte County to grow and to be the place that people want to come and bring their families, like we did when we came and made our lives here, which we have done for generations. And all of these, I look around and I see people who've been here for generations. I kind of get mixed up and I say, well, which generation was that? Maybe I was the second or third. But I really urge you, I implore you as a board to put this back on the agenda and to vote to opt out. Get some spine, people. We're in a battle for our state. We're in a battle for our country. And the Constitution of the United States, remember we had one war because the state seceded. This time, let's not have a war. Let's take a stand to support the Constitution of the United States, which many of our loved ones have given their lives and their fortunes for, which our founding fathers did. So I implore you to put it back on the agenda and to vote to opt out. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Supervisor Gitlin, good to see you back. Hope you're feeling well. Mike Thornton, Crescent City. Oh, here we are again. It's really interesting because I don't know who we're in a battle to save our state from. That's a pretty provocative statement. I've heard a number of people talking about issues related to economy, homelessness, the aspirations and dreams of our young people. That's what we need to be spending our time on in this community, not rehashing this same thing over and over again. I mean, I thought that we were able to move past this after how many hours at the previous board meeting where this was on the agenda? There are important things happening in this community. There are homeless people here. There are people without jobs. There are young people without economic opportunity. Many of them have very little hope for their future. It has nothing to do with SB 54 and the California Values Act. I hear a lot about crime. Sheriff Apperson is here. Sheriff Apperson and his officers and our police department do a pretty gosh darn good job of keeping our communities safe. And we've heard from them previously, this does not impact their ability to do their jobs. So why do we keep talking about rampant criminality and we're losing our state and the needing to secede from the union and our businesses fleeing? None of this has anything to do with the California Values Act. And here we are wasting your valuable time, staff's valuable time, the valuable time of the public, and important issues facing our community will not be dealt with because this is taking up all of the time of the board over and over and over again. I urge you, somebody talked about having some spine. I think spine is a great thing. Have some spine and put this thing to bed. Thank you.
Good morning.
Donna Westfall, good morning, everybody. And I brought my own cue card so I wouldn't forget what I wanted to talk about. First of all, I couldn't disagree more with Mike Thornton, but I'll get to that later. Here I have a thank you. Jerry Hemmingson, CAO Jay Serena, thank you very much for attending the Community Choice Aggregation meeting yesterday and asking good questions. Bob Berkowitz, Roger Gitlin, thank you attending prior CCA meetings. Congratulations to Bob for being in the NACO news and getting the award, and we published that in the Crescent City Times. Very proud of you. Okay, what's next? Locally, I'm hoping to get a measure on the November ballot to repeal the flat rate sewer rates and go to consumption-based without the 20% rate increase over 4 years. The reason I'm bringing it up at this county meeting is because 2/3 of the ratepayers are in the county and they don't get a vote. This is a city issue. Next, I want to talk about abortion. There are those of us that believe that abortion is tantamount to murder, and taking baby body parts and selling them is murder for profit. When Roe v. Wade became the law of the land, we were told no taxpayer dollars would be spent on abortion. The line in the sand keeps moving. Next, in my humble opinion, I'd like to see Governor Brown, Jerry Brown, and the Democratic legislators behind bars because I think they are taxing us without representation. The gas tax is one. Now I want to talk about mandatory vaccination, where they removed religious exemptions, and now are we creating more autistic children? Little bodies cannot handle the litany of shots given these days, and they need to postpone these until they're older. Otherwise, perfectly healthy babies are becoming autistic. And lastly, I'd like to talk on SB 54. No, and all I'm going to say is, you've already heard it all, ditto, 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 ditto. No, please opt out. Please do your amicus brief, your resolution, whatever is necessary. And I think you do need a spine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, Chuck.
Good morning. I'm Kent from Gasky.
Kent.
Again.
Gosh.
I thank you. I apologize for my tardiness. I didn't know it started at 10 o'clock. I want to say thank you to this lady here that puts out all the homework, footwork, and research to make sure the projects that we talk about get done. I want to thank this man here for all his work. I certainly want to thank Eric Apperson, if that's who you are, because it's the first time I met you. Being an ex-Navy man myself, I salute you for your work. I have done my research about voting this time around, being a new resident of Gasky, and I have heard from people in Brookings, Gold Beach, Crescent City, Gasky, Klamath, that Eric Apperson is the most fairest, straight up sheriff you can ask for. He's a fair man. He is a sheriff. He will arrest you. He will put you in jail. He's the sheriff after all. But he's a straight-up individual. And that's the kind of man we need in office for 40 years, not get replaced. So, and I know you don't want to be the sheriff for 40 years because you have a wife and family of your own to try to have a life for yourself. However, with that being said, I am a next stagehand in rock and roll for 47 years, 35 years with the Grateful Dead, 44 years with ZZ Top, and 41 years with Steely Dan, 17 years with Willie, 17 years, that's Willie Nelson, and 17 years with Fleetwood Mac. I want to say that I have a lot of visions for this place too, as to bringing concerts to the fairgrounds and make that property be used rather than just property taxes being paid on it, but it's sitting empty, other than Ricky the Redneck monster moron pickup truck tires events. Now Ricky the Redneck moron needs an event to go to keep his soul soothed as well, but let's just have some other events happening besides that one. I want to thank this lady here because she does a lot in her job and never gets recognized or thanked. So I thank you for that. And I just want to say that I'm sorry for my tardiness. Thank you.
No worries, Kent. We're sure concert will be here with all your energy. Good morning.
Morning, Board. My name is Jake Smith. I live in the county. I want to echo the discussion about SB 54. I do think that it's an important issue. We need to join other California cities and counties. And I think looking at supporting getting a brief to get it to the courts would be the way to go. I think it's good for all concerned, all parties concerned, to get resolution to this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Patricia Hanks, and I live in Crescent City. And I'm very disturbed about, and I thought somebody would have brought it up by now, the little trip to Japan. I would love to go to Japan, but of course I'm on Social Security, retired, so I can't do that. And I don't think that our city is in any way, shape, or form in a position to send 15 people to Japan for a vacation, because that's really what it is. I think that we need to pay our sewer bill off. So I, as a retired person living on a limited income, don't have to pay $95 a month for sewer. And I'm only one person. And I'm not alone. And my landlord pays nothing. I have never rented a place in California, and I was born in this state, or in Oregon, where I've resided for 30 years, where I had to pay my sewer bill. That's the responsibility of the landlord, but this town doesn't see it that way. So I have to pay that every month. As a matter of fact, they gave me late charges until it got up to a certain point of late charges, because I missed one payment when I first moved here. And they shut my water off, my water and sewer off. I'm 74 years old, good God. But luckily, I had somebody come forth and help me pay it. But I think that this is an important project that needs to be taken care of. I think we need to help the people of this town, not take money that may be allotted for trips to take little ventures off to Japan. Anything you need to do with Japan can be done over the internet. We have great internet. We have video, we have everything. You don't need to make a trip over there. We know what a tsunami is. You've lived through it here. Why do you need Japan to tell you what to do in a tsunami? I think that we're taking our money and spending it in all the wrong places. Why do we have signs on A Street that tells where the ocean is and where the post office is? People know where the ocean is. All they have to do is go west, and they're going to run into it. You don't need a sign down on 8th Street by the hotel to tell you how to get to the post office. It's right down the street. And most people that are driving around don't look for this. So I think our money would be better spent, instead of sending 15 of you to Japan, to spend it on our city that is in desperate need of help. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Kylan Honer, District 5. I'd just like to make a comment in my support of the trip to Japan. I went on the last delegation with Bob Berkowitz and Lori Cowan. I paid my way, as most of the delegates are doing on this trip. And I think that people really need to know about the benefits, the economic benefits that come along with this. There's a lot that we can learn. Japan is growing, Rikazintaka is growing tomatoes and strawberries all year round, and they have a climate that is very, very similar to ours. We're on just about the same, latitude. We could take that knowledge, but it's not, people seem to expect what's the payoff. It's entrepreneurship. People have to work for it. People have to go out and use this relationship. We don't get a benefit right off the bat. We get an opportunity. We get an opportunity to use it. And there are probably tons of other things that we can learn. And they think the same thing. That's why they've funded all the rest of the trips. They think that they can learn from us, and this is a great opportunity. This is an opportunity for our young people. This is an opportunity to learn about a new culture. This is an opportunity that not many cities across the United States get. We have a unique opportunity to take advantage of all of these benefits, and we do actually need to send people. As Bob Berkowitz pointed out when he came back in his writings, he discovered in an impromptu visit to an emergency preparedness activity that Rotary was funding and shipping, that they were using Rotary emergency kits and emergency tents. Bob spoke about that. That is not something that would happen over the internet. That's not something that would happen, by talking to people. The benefits are going to be long-term. They're talking about planting a redwood forest over there. That's generations of people. That's inspiring generations of people to come here. The tourism dollars alone from that could pay off this trip. It really is sad that people are so short-sighted in terms of the benefits of this relationship. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Eileen Cooper.
Good morning, Eileen.
Good morning. I am of a slightly different opinion about the trip to Japan. It's not that it's not of value to the community. It is of value. It's the excessiveness of what has been approved. We are a poor community, and I feel that 15 people is way too many people to send. What could be more accomplished more by 2 or 3 well-picked people, an engineer, and a dignitary, and have carefully crafted questions for them to gather information for us and share. I support the continued relationship, but I just am upset about the overzealousness of spending on this without, care. That actually these funds to accommodate all of these people out there that Japan is paying for, that is coming from their emergency disaster funds. I don't feel good about that as a responsible citizen. I think we need to be careful with their money as well as our money. And it's a valuable trip, but it's a trip where I don't even see a list of questions that you want answered over there. What's the next step? Who do you want to meet with? And why can't we use the internet more to continue this relationship and set up Skype and set up continuing dialogue on the internet. That's what the internet is for, to reduce costs like this. Some sea level rise, more airplanes flying, voila. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment. That's a great hurdle for a 70-pluser.
I can get back at you. Good morning, Terry McNamara, Delaware County resident. I don't remember the gentleman's name, who was supporting the trip to Japan, and I totally support it. The relationships between our community and their community, it can't be weighed in money in the long run. It just can't be. I just wanted to make that simple statement. The other one is the SB 54. I'm an opt-out guy, and the gentleman back up here was talking about other things better to do. I don't think so. You've got a lot on your plate, but I'd like you to reconsider it also.
Thank you.
Hi there.
Good morning.
My name's Clark Wade. I've never spoken here before, but
welcome.
I'm opposed to SB 54, and I did a little research right before I came here regarding this bill. And SB 54 violates the oath of office every person employed by the state of California swears to uphold. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of California. A law enforcement organization whose members include every county sheriff in California and across the nation through its support Friday behind the Trump administration challenge to the state's sanctuary laws, telling a federal judge that the laws interfere with immigration enforcement and could even subject local officers to criminal charges. California compels local law enforcement to violate federal law, of which they are sworn to uphold. The State Sheriff Association opposes SB 54, which makes California a sanctuary state. Senate Bill 54 would prevent local law enforcement from notifying federal immigration authorities about illegal or undocumented immigrants that are arrested and taken into custody, except those accused of violent felonies. 2 years ago, 64-year-old Marilyn Ferris was brutally attacked and raped as she slept inside her Santa Maria home. She died later from her injuries in the hospital. The illegal alien who killed Marilyn was Victor Arellano Martinez, an illegal immigrant who had been in and out of custody several times, but never deported. The bill has a number of crimes that are excluded that we would not be able to communicate with federal law enforcement authorities about, said Corey Salciso with CSSA, that still remains problematic for the sheriffs. While the word immigration does not appear in the U.S. Constitution or any of its amendments, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4 does read, to establish an uniform rule of naturalization. The 14th Amendment, Section 1, addresses the protection of all persons born or naturalized in the United States. SB 54 places the protection and harboring of illegal aliens over all persons born or naturalized in the United States.
Thank you, Clark.
Thank you.
Public comment.
Good morning, Supervisors. Sorry, I have a little bit of a cold, so I sound funny.
Good morning.
The reason I am here to speak to you this morning, in a way, has to do with Japan, and I will just say that it's big picture, people. It's big picture. the opportunities are boundless, and it's an amazing opportunity that we've been gifted, and in return we are going to have to invest in it ourselves. That being said, I have a deep concern with some recent activities on social media. While I strongly believe that everyone has the right to say whatever they want, to voice their opinions, uninformed or not, I have a sincere issue with an elected official using social media for cyberbullying. This is not a new MO for a certain elected official to come out and direct nastiness towards members of our community. I remember an insurance businesswoman, manager at Safeway, the whole debacle with the Oxford House, and now the entire city council. It's outrageous that this is happening, and rather than try to break people down, I prefer to be part of building people up and working with people in the community, and that's what I believe social media is for. I think that there are some wonderful things that have been done with a Take a Bite Out of Blight program. I am all for it and I appreciate it. I would love to see people invited rather than shamed and inferred what have they done to be a part of making their community better. So for that, I implore all of you to unplug. Unplug, please. Let's talk kindly and supportively of the people that we work with and our community, and we can all do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Public comment. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, everyone. My name is Manuel Vidal. Sorry. First of all, I wanted to thank Chris Howard and Jerry Hemingston for prioritizing young people and showing up to a candidate Q&A session put on by young people. I know it was a really kind of empty room, as both of you were the only ones that showed up. I think in the comments that I've been hearing, I think it's interesting that our society can be so angry about money being spent on improving relationships with these flights, and be so reckless in advocating for opting out of the California Values Act, which would be a big lawsuit for us. As the comments that you've heard, we're a very poor county. It's no lie. I know y'all have seen it before. The Constitution is a living document, and things change. This means that the laws and rules that apply several decades ago don't apply now. So when we're talking about immediate threats and imposing dangers and immigration laws, I kind of want to remind ourselves that we're living in a new era and a new time. Not too long ago, the only way you could vote was if you were a man and owned property. So I guess what I'm trying to say is times change, get used to it. For the people that are very anti-immigration, don't let these people into our country. And this false idea that our city or our counties is rampant with criminals and these people that want to kill us and do us harm. We are Del Norte County is as far as you can get away from the U.S. border. And as though that doesn't mean that we do not have undocumented citizens in this county, that doesn't mean that we should exile them if they are undocumented. I think that the comments being made of criminals is just that, a criminal problem. It's not an immigration problem. And speaking about criminals in an immigration context is not a new ploy. It's just a ploy to try to scapegoat or try to find somebody to blame for all these horrible things happening. And again, I just wanted to say thank you to Hemingston and Chris Howard for showing up. I know it's really hard for young people to come in and speak to candidates, and it's just really nice to have both of you make time for us, as not a lot of young people are here today. So thank you again.
Thank you, Manuel. Okay, is that the last public comment? One more, it looks like.
Pardon me if I stagger up to the microphone.
No worries, take your time.
Sam Strait, District 4.
Good morning, Sam.
I don't want to be condescending, but much of the previous speakers' comments were more political than accurate, and I too would like to see the Board of Supervisors at least step forward and place the item that has been tabled with respect to Proposition 54, or actually SB 54, back on the agenda, and for you 5 individuals to do what we pay you a relatively large amount of money per year to do, and that is to make a decision either up or down with respect to that particular issue, and put this behind us, as opposed to having it continually crop up on the Board of Supervisors menu with respect to the public comment. I feel that if you were to actually take a vote and dispense with this matter one way or another, whether you support it or not, that you could save yourself a lot of time and a lot of anxiety over whether or not people feel kindly inclined towards you. It's a simple matter. They've requested that you do a couple of things, either pass a resolution or put forth an amicus brief. It seems to me that although there's the claim that it's going to cost the county a lot of money, that isn't in fact the case, that a simple vote one way or another would put an end to all of the anxiety and all of the angst that currently occupy this community. So I urge you to take the SB 54 off the table and put it into some sort of a up or down vote as to how this board would like to see that particular issue handled. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Good morning, my name is Terry Sapahan, Executive Director for the True North Organizing Network. We're a multi-faith, multi-race social justice organization for all people. And the irony is that I'm here to speak this morning about love and the transformative power of love and the power of love. And the fact that we're talking about SB 54, we're talking about the California Values Act, is a symbol of powerful love for a lot of people throughout the state of California in terms of how the state looks out for and protects all of us. And so I'm asking you not to bring this up again. We're going to have a more divisive conversation if it comes up again. And the irony is that when we talk about protecting the Constitution, the County of Del Norte is not going to change immigration law one way or the other. We're talking about the people, friends, and family that you have in this county for all of us. And one more ironic point I want to make is that True North has a number of Japanese American attempting to immigrate into the United States from Canada and Japan. And in the discussion this morning about building relationships between Del Norte County and Japan, the irony to me is that people that you want in your community, the people that you want to contribute economically and educationally to your community, are having a difficult time and are afraid, currently afraid, as having green cards and taken away and being deported. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. Public comment.
I'm Victoria Dickey. I live in Bob Berkowitz district. I have about 5 quick points. One is a little longer. I don't believe we should be defying the federal laws, the federal government, either regarding sanctuary cities. I think you need to take a position. If you take a position right or wrong, at least you've taken a position and it's off of the agenda. I personally think that we should not be a sanctuary county. Period. Simple. No. Second thing, drugs.
You know, I mean, at what point do you say, follow our laws, our rules, our ordinances, but we're not going to follow the federal ordinances. We're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. We will pick and choose. I find that offensive. Excuse me, but I do. Also, Matthew Street. There's a bear up there. Bob, thank you for your call to whoever, because somebody called. State of California went out there with their cutesy little warden and said, oh, you have things outside. There's an 80-year-old woman who's had a pacemaker put in. She can carry a gun, but you can't shoot it. If she did, she'll dislodge this. They've said, well, you have to put everything in. Well, first off, she had a refrigerator on the back porch. The bear came over, ripped the door off. This is not a little bear. He's there every night. She does what she can. She makes noise. She does this and that. Nobody's helping. Now, I don't know why I should be surprised about that, because we've had a cougar that came around in our area. I live out in that area. We had a coyote that ate my cat last year. The elk are all over the place. I mean, come on. They got 80% of this county to roam on, our little 20% of residential. I would like to see you do something. Write a letter. Contacted the governor yesterday, and they said, oh, well, write us a letter. Thanks a lot. I mean, I even get to a point where I don't want to come down here and talk to you because I don't see anything happening. I'm sorry. I just don't. Many out our way have lost pets to the wildlife. I know there's a lot of feed stuff too. Second thing is, I think you should go to Japan. I think that's the one way we're going to guarantee that 2 people will not be reelected to this board. Everybody I talk to says, why are they going to Japan? What's the matter with the phone? I also believe that there should be a vote again on the state of Jefferson. We're getting nothing from the state of California. I don't see it. You can tell me it's there. It doesn't show up on my door, only to say, well, clean up your backyard and then maybe we'll come after this bear who could break in and kill you. And he does. I'm going to be down here every week telling you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Any other public comment at this time?
Hello, Dana Gilport. I believe I live in your district still, Mr. Gitlin, and I am just up here to say we have, or you have, I didn't vote. Y'all voted, the vote was done, y'all passed the motion. I can't believe we are talking about the California Values Act again and wasting even more time. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any further public comment? Okay, we're going to go ahead and bring this back to the board. There was 2 proclamations on the agenda today I'd like to get read at this time. Lori, could you please read the proclamation you have in front of you?
Absolutely, thanks.
Thank you.
This is a proclamation of the Board of Supervisors of the County of Del Norte, State of California, recognizing the Senior Corps Del Norte Foster Parent Program. Whereas the Senior Corps Del Norte Volunteer Foster Parent Program is made up of the following volunteers: Virginia Johnson, Wanda Hara, Patricia Martin, Diane Thompson, Robert Silvers, Ann Swanson, Elaine Rudolph, Jean Swartz, Joanne Hartman, Jeanette Gayhart, Lisa Bailey, Maxine McKinney, Lynn Gonzalez, Mary Trevino, Roy Thompson, Sandy Gensaw, Sharon Chafee, Kitty Hill, Carolyn Silvers, John Wolf, Marianne Hatfield, Ruth Weiskup. And whereas the Senior Corps Foster Grandparent Program volunteers for 20 years have provided mentoring in Del Norte schools under the management of Program Coordinator Kim Yost, Senior Corps Director Rebecca Enberg of Ukiah NCO Agency, and whereas the Senior Corps Foster Grandparent Program provides 50 or 500 plus hours per week volunteering with children in the classroom. And whereas the children of Del Norte receive additional mentoring, support, and kindness from Senior Corps volunteer grandparents. And whereas the Del Norte County Unified School District's teachers receive additional assistance in classrooms, in the lunchroom, on the playgrounds, and in field trips. And whereas the Senior Corps volunteer grandparents of Del Norte continue to be purposeful, healthy, and dedicated to volunteering, caring, and sharing the successes of our children in schools. And now therefore be it proclaimed that the Board of Supervisors, County of Del Norte, State of California, hereby and acknowledge the dedication, hard work, mentoring, caring, and sharing that is exhibited by the Senior Corps Foster Grandparents Program of Del Norte Foster Volunteer Grandparents and staff, and be it further proclaimed that the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors hereby recognizes the Senior Corps Foster Grandparents of Del Norte for contributing to the success of the children in our schools, and share on behalf of the community our support and gratitude for all you contribute to our community, passed and adopted this 22nd day of May 2018. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you, and I do have some grandparents in the audience here, but for 20 years we've been here in the county, and we've been really actually kicking butt. Our grandparents are in the schools, and they are every day so dedicated to going in these schools, and you know, it helps them to be healthy. They actually are earning a stipend because under the Senior Domestic Service Volunteer Act of '73, it allows us to be able to pay our seniors a stipend that is non-declarable, non-taxable to help supplement their incomes. So that's another really great part of our program. But my agency, North Coast Opportunities, is out of Ukiah, and we've been there for, I want to say 50 years, and we have 5 counties. So out of 5 counties, I think Del Norte's actually been really one of our strongest counties, so I feel really good about that. But those are my grandmas out there, and we got some grandpas too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Hemmingson.
Yes, thank you. This is a proclamation in recognition of Tom Cabrera for his 20-plus years of service to Search and Rescue. Whereas Tom was a member of Search and Rescue for over 20 years, and whereas after Tom joined the Search and Rescue team, he rapidly moved up in the chain of command, first as a team member, then to assistant team leader, then to a leader, and was then promoted to assistant search and rescue coordinator. And whereas Tom was very active member of the board of directors, where he was in charge of procurement and loved to spend money on equipment to make sure the search and rescue team had the best and safest equipment possible. And whereas Tom was a rope rescue instructor and taught many training sessions, and whereas when when a vehicle dropped into a mine shaft, Tom was lowered the 50-plus feet into the shaft to rescue the survivor of the accident. And whereas when 3 Humboldt State students went over the bank and down to the Smith River, Tom, using a Stokes litter, assisted by ropes, brought the students safely to the roadway by himself. And whereas Tom was the team's communication man, not only did he program and maintain all the radios, he also built a portable repeater to help with communications in mountainous areas. And now therefore be it proclaimed, the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors hereby recognizes Tom's dedication and impact he left on this community, and wishes him the best for him and his family's future endeavors, passed and adopted this 22nd day of May 2018.
Hey, you guys got to do that again.
Come on up here.
Just real quick, I'd like to thank Sheriff Apperson, Board of Supervisors, and former Search and Rescue Coordinator Terry McNamara. Without having Terry around, it wouldn't have been possible. He was our guidance. And so, anyways, thank you for being recognized.
You're welcome, Tom. All right, we're going to move forward with our 10:15 timed agenda item. We're a little bit behind today, but This agenda item is to receive a local opioid coalition presentation from Heather Snow, our Director of Del Norte Health and Human Services, and Dr. Raywalt, our Health and Human Services Officer, and approve and authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to sign and send a letter to Senator McGuire requesting a local town hall regarding the opioid epidemic requested by the Director of Health and Human Services. Good morning, Heather. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning. Good morning.
So I'm happy to be joined today by Dr. Warren Raywald, who's our health officer. Happy to be here for you guys today, and want you guys to know, as you know, there's a national epidemic around opioids, and I wanted to let you know that there is a local group of stakeholders who meet regularly to talk about our local issues. We've been meeting since last year, and I have to say that I think the group is well represented from different groups around the community. There's good attendance from a lot of different groups. There's a full list of active members included with the letter that you have, and you'll see there's a lot of county offices on there, which we're proud of. So the team overall is developing goals and made some subgroups to achieve them. The subgroups are standards of care, coordination of care and treatment options, harm reduction, and community education and prevention. So naturally, Health and Human Services, the public health branch, is taking the lead with community education and prevention. And one of the pieces of that is we'd like to hold a town hall later this year to address local issues. And we'd like to invite Senator McGuire to assist us with this. He's done so in a few other communities recently. So part of our request is for you to authorize us to send a letter to request his assistance. And there's a draft of that for you. And while we're here today, Dr. Raywald wanted to offer you some local information and data and give you the chance to ask any questions that you may have.
So I just have a few comments to make. I want to keep this fairly brief. Historically, the people who treat substance abuse in this county have always viewed Del Norte County as a sort of a methamphetamine afflicted county. That's been the primary drug of abuse. I think I've been in community health for almost over a quarter of a century now. So I think that I would agree with that through most of my career, but the last few years have definitely changed. And I think it's fair to say that Del Norte County is kind of catching up with the rest of the country. My wife is Dr. Groves. She's been working at the Community Health Center, the Del Norte Community Health Center, for her entire career. She started a substance abuse treatment program, a maintenance program with Suboxone about 7 or 8 years ago. She started with 5 clients, and she has over 100 active clients right now. So I think the demand has picked up over that time frame. And I think that reflects that the use pattern in our county has changed somewhat. If you look at national data and you match it up to our census data, and you drill down all those numbers and try and make sense of it, which I have tried to do personally, and I don't want to make this a hard quote or anything, this is a rough estimate. You come up with a number of about 300 to 350 people who are active abusing opioids of some sort in this county. And probably 2/3 of them have a diagnosable substance use disorder as part of that. And that's doesn't seem like a huge group, but it is a substantial enough group to be a big problem from a public health standpoint and from a clinical standpoint. And I think our clinical observations bear this out as well. You know, if those 100 clients over at that program, when they get brought into the program and they start their counseling, they're often asked, you know, who in the community do you share with? Do you have contacts? And everybody can name at least 1, 2, maybe 3 individuals, maybe as many as 5. So if you take that 100 and you kind of amplify with that number, you get a ballpark number of 300, 400 individuals. We had, I think, 4 overdose deaths reported to the National Statistic Database in 2016. And the scary thing about this is that there's a lot of information out there on the national news and the state news, but it has changed so much compared to where it was 20 years ago or even 15 years ago. At the beginning of this century, opioid overdose deaths in the country were less than 10,000 across the board. In 2016, there were 64,000 overdose deaths. And the scariest part about that is that 20,000 of them were related to use of fentanyl. And this is the part that has really made this a crisis nationally, is that there are these products that have been marketed and brought from overseas that contain fentanyl and its analog related things like carfentanil that are extremely potent and extremely dangerous, and they're being marketed as replacements for the commonly prescribed opioids that people use and buy on the street, like Percocet and Norco, and they don't understand what they're getting, and it's killing them. So we think it's a growing problem in this county. We think we definitely need to take better efforts to address it. That's the reason for the Opioid Coalition, and I would welcome any support and interest that the board may have. And I thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Questions for the doctor? Supervisor.
Dr. Rehwaldt, it's nice to see you here in front of the board.
Thank you.
Being a current user of Norco at this very moment, I'm very vigilant as to what will happen when this eventually comes off. But I would like, if it would be possible, to have you make a presentation to our board just about what is it the public health officer does. I know your duties, but I don't think the public does, including the overseeing of making sure our water is clean and drinkable, and many of your other presentations. So perhaps in the future, over the summer months, a 15-minute segment can be carved out, and you can come and present what the public health officer does. It is required by the state that all counties have public health officers, but I would venture to say that most people here in the audience don't really know what you do, and I know you do a lot, so I would appreciate if you can come to our board at a future time and make that presentation.
I will try and do so.
Thank you.
Chairman?
Yes, Supervisor.
Dr. Rehwaldt, as you know, Senator McGuire attended a similar town hall meeting in Humboldt County, I think about 2 weeks ago. I was wondering if you heard any results come out of that meeting that you could share with us.
No, I haven't, but I know our Opioid Coalition is going to be discussing the Humboldt efforts as we go along. Part of this coalition has been some input from people working in Humboldt County as well. And you know, Humboldt has a significantly larger problem active right now, so they've gotten a lot of attention.
Other questions?
The only thing that sticks out to me that I remembered, well, not the only thing, but something that stuck out to me when we were in a workshop regarding this was that we have more prescriptions out there than we have people that we subscribe them to. Does that make sense? In Del Norte County, that was one of the statistics that was said. Does that make sense, what you said?
Yes.
Okay, so why is that? Why do we have a certain amount of people, but that many more prescriptions for the same drug to that person?
Well, there's several ways that can happen. If you're talking about just the total number of prescriptions versus number of recipients, there are a lot of people who take more than one thing for different reasons. It sometimes is they are duplicating and they're getting prescriptions from other providers. That's the usual explanation.
So do we have any, we don't have any way in Del Norte County to, I mean, with all the technology and talking back and forth between systems, we have no way of tracking that and stopping that?
We do. It's a state program called Cures. It's been up for about 4 years, I think, online, and they revised it last year. And it's actually going to become a mandatory requirement for prescribing and re-prescribing starting in October. But we use it a lot at our clinic already. And it's sometimes a little bit behind the times because the data entry takes a little time to get caught up. But it gives you a breakdown of all the people who've been prescribing the drugs that you're interested in when you type in the data in the last 6 months. And that's been very useful for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Public comment. Please, approach the dais.
Actually, just questions to the doctor.
If you could approach it to us, Sam.
Sam Straight.
Thank you.
District 4. This question is actually for the doctor. And what I'm wondering is there any relationship or documented relationship between our current opioid problem and our current homeless problem here in the county?
Thank you, Sam. Any other public comment at this time?
Hello, I'm still Kent from Gasky. On this situation with the doctor, he's telling you right. I've been here for almost 3 summers now. This is my 3rd summer working here as a resident. And all I've seen is nothing but meth labs and meth heads taking over this whole entire county. Homeless, car camp at Walmart. Walmart is allowing car camp to be there, but it allows everybody in car camp to just sponge and be a panhandler off everybody and cry the blues that they don't have any money when they actually have government assistance to live on, food stamps and GA coming in and pretending they don't have any money and just scamming the society of Del Norte County. Now, the society of Del Norte County is getting to where they're wanting to boycott Walmart because of that. And as Eric Apperson is the sheriff and he's overseeing all the deputies, I think that needs to be a priority issue to try to get that cleaned up. Getting rid of the meth labs and meth heads. There was a fire the other day on Elk Valley Road that was nothing but black smoke, and everybody that didn't go look at the fire just assumed that it might have been a meth lab blowing up and being the cause of the fire. But that's just everybody's opinion. And assumption, well, assume means make an ass out of you and me. So let's quit making an ass out of each other. So with that being said, I forgot to thank this lady here for all her work, and I don't want to go without her recognition. And I just want to see that positive things going on in this county and this city. And I attended the city council meeting last night for my first time, and I came dressed like this. I came to my first meeting dressed like Political Pete and came last night and today as myself. And what I saw last night and felt the vibe all the way to my bones, that the city council was all young people, young blood with young visions for this place as a city. I see all of you on the panel, a little gray hair, a little older, a little bit more wisdom, and we need both. We need the older with the wisdom, passing it down to the younger generation with their young visions, and the two of them working together to make this a better place. And I always say that the left hand never knows what the right hand is doing, and that's always the case, because they're out here, and they're up here, and they're behind here, where you don't even see what each other's doing, and you don't communicate. So in this case, the city is the right hand, and the county is the left hand. And instead of being back here not knowing what each other's doing, let's clap, be happy, love, and harmony.
Thank you, Ken. Public comment.
Good morning again, Supervisors. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. From the time I was 14 till just about the time I was 30, I was a IV drug user, homeless in a number of communities around the country. And what I want to really speak to is the restorative and redemptive power of drug treatment. I got lucky. I was able to get into a program, get clean and stay clean, and I've been clean and sober for some 35 years now. For 15 of those years, I ran drug treatment programs in both the nonprofit and governmental sector, and worked with a lot of folks who were a lot like me. And so opioids and meth and other drugs and alcohol, let's include that as well, are serious problems for the people who are affected by addiction, their families, and their communities. And what I would advocate for is, as best as possible, that we start working towards treatment on demand. There are always moments in a person's life when they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they're ready. And if help is available, that help can change their lives and the lives of everybody that's around them. I remember when I was working in the field that the estimate was for every dollar spent on drug treatment, you saved some $7 in other costs. You don't have the sheriff and the police having to deal with things. You don't have the emergency room at the hospital having to deal with things. You have less people homeless and on the street and wandering and getting themselves and other people in trouble. So as we look at addressing the problem of drug abuse and drug dependency, and whether it be opioids or something else, that we really start looking at how do we provide drug treatment on demand. Addiction is a sickness. I can attest to that, as many others can as well. And when people have cancer, we find a way to help them. If people are addicted to drugs, let's find a way to help them. It will benefit them and the rest of our community. Let's make that a priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment at this time? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. Doctor, can you revisit the podium real quick? We had a question from the audience that I'd like you to address.
Yes, I don't know specific numbers, but I know that the general conclusion is that homeless people have very high rates of addiction. So, and much higher than average.
Thank you.
They are co-joined problems in some ways, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it, Doctor. All right. Any further questions for staff at this time? Very good. So can we have a motion on the table then?
Yeah, I would move that we approve and authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to sign and send a letter to Senator McGuire requesting a local town hall regarding the opioid epidemic.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Kylie, can you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. All right, we're going to move into our 10:25 timed agenda item, which is a cannabis working group update. I believe Vice Chairman Jesse Davis is here with us today. Jesse, good morning.
Good morning. I was hoping our chair, Blake Alexander, would be able to be here to answer any questions for him. I don't see him, so I'll cover it.
Growing a business right now.
Yes, I understand. That's what I'd like to be doing. Okay.
Good point.
Let me get focused here again. I'm a little off focus from everything that I heard today. A lot of good information and important things to think about. So thank you guys for everything that you do and all the different things you have on your plate at the same time you have to balance. Okay, so I'm Jesse Davis. I'm the Vice Chair now of the Cannabis Working Group, and this is a working group report from our meeting on May 16th. And Blake Alexander is now our chairman, and he's asked me to give this report and perhaps others in the future. So on that meeting, we focused mostly on retail, as has been the focus for the last several meetings. And we're getting close. We hope to finish it up at the next meeting and have something that County Council can work with to start writing an ordinance. So the whole project has sort of been centered around how to limit the number of retail stores without using a cap. And so Joel wasn't able to attend the last meeting. So when we have questions about, what are the legal pitfalls with this idea and that idea, we didn't have the benefit of his input. So we went a little bit of a different direction than we had been going with the retail conversation. And we talked a little bit about how the Planning Commission might play a larger role in the whole process. A lot of other municipalities and localities are utilizing their Planning Commission in a much more direct way in forming policy and ordinances. And since all these, if we have permits for retail, they will most likely be going through the use permit process, which sees Planning Commission review on a case-by-case basis. And so there was some discussion that it may be appropriate for the Planning Commission to accept some responsibility on making these decisions on a case-by-case basis, rather than trying to create an ordinance that covers all possible cases. It's going to be quite impossible, as it's the whole purpose of the use permit process and the Planning Commission to be able to make decisions on a case-by-case basis about what's appropriate for the community. And then to that, we're looking at setbacks, mostly schools being the sensitive area. And when you look at the maps, we see that most of the schools are far enough away from commercial zones already that they're pretty protected in and of themselves, just their distance from commercial zones. And considering that retail outlets would only be in commercial zones, they're protected in that way. There's some general consensus in the group that we have an existing retail location now for medical cannabis that's widely accepted by the community in terms of its location and its visibility. It's located on North Crest. it's roughly 550 feet from a school. It's a private school and a church. And so after a lot of discussion, we're going in the direction of wanting to use this as the standard for what, for medical-only cannabis retail outlets, for what they look like. Recreational cannabis outlets would be considered something different and would potentially be needing a greater setback than a medical-only cannabis outlet. These are some details that Joel helps us to understand whether or not they're realistic to do. We'll ask him at the next meeting about whether or not our ideas are viable. We could also further control density by placing a large buffer between stores, say 1,000 feet. And we also talked about not allowing stores in outlying areas like Klamath, Gasky, Smith River, Fort Dick, and up near the border perhaps, for security reasons and to potentially reduce the total number of stores. There's a new proposed state rule that requires security personnel services 24/7 at retail outlets, but it's not yet clear whether or not this means on-site security, or perhaps you'd be hiring a security service that could be on-site if needed. It's not clear yet how this proposed rule would work out. Among our group, delivery services are off the table for now completely. I'm not talking about that for this draft of the ordinance. Also for some security concerns that we talked about the last report. So with this arrangement, I think it would be really difficult to fit more than 3 or 4 stores countywide, and not including Crescent City. So that's sort of the direction we're going, and group's kind of feeling confident that we should be able to wrap it up, the retail component, at our next meeting.
Oh, perfect.
Any questions?
Questions for Jesse at this time? Okay. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
I'm going to open it up to public comment on this item of the working group, if there's any comments for that item. Another member of the working group.
Robert Dorigo, a member of the working group, District 1 rep, inhabitant. Actually, I'm in your district right now. Yeah, I just wanted to support the progress that we've made here. You know, you guys passed the tax to go to the ballot at the last meeting, and so we're seeing a little bit of progress happening out of the board and the working group, and just wanted to support your guys' support of introducing the personal cultivation. There's a few things I thought, you know, could be a little bit different, like I always say. You know? Sure. But you know, with the number of people on the board, I think we came up with a pretty well-rounded, well thought out policy. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello again. I'm still Kent from Gasky. On this issue, I have to echo what I said on the last meeting, was that the pot dispensaries in the Del Norte County and in the city of Crescent City needs to be happening, because there's 19 pot dispensaries in Brookings, and Brookings have taken all that tax money dollars that's coming in from the pot dispensaries and using it for bettering 101, which is Chetco Avenue through town. It's bettering all the city parks. It's bettering all the schools, building more buildings on the grounds for bigger schools and holding more students. It's also investing in books to be upgraded instead of reading books that have been printed back in '57. And all the tax-paying dollars is going to a really good cause to better the city. So instead of banning the pot clubs from being in Del Norte County altogether, you might want to think about bringing all the revenue to this county. And the person that is, I don't know who that is that against pot club dispensaries being in the county comes across to me like they don't want to have revenue for their county, and they're not up for having any revenue come in for the county for whatever the county needs. And if that's the kind of attitude and way of thinking he or she has, then take his paycheck or her paycheck away, and then they'll start appreciating the revenue coming into the county.
Thank you. Other public comment at this time? Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board. Sorry, Liz, I didn't see you. Come on up. No worries.
Liz Freeman, District 5. Bob Berkowitz is my representative. Commenting on this number 14, Cannabis Working Group update. I wish Blake was here. I'd like to hear what he had to say. I just want to remind the board that we still have a ban on recreational and commercial marijuana, as last I read, last I understand. We still have a ban on in this county. Is that true? Thank you. I would like to see the ban kept on. I know that this working group is in place, and it's really concerning to me that it was ever put in place, because with it being in place, the implication is that it's going to be a reality. And they talk about money. I think that, and the opioid problem, all the studies have shown for many years that marijuana is the gateway drug to other heavier drugs. Marijuana is now so hybrid, it's very addictive. Those are studied out yourself. So we're opening the gates to use of more addictive drugs and heavier drugs, the opioids that we now admittedly have a pandemic of, sorry to say. So I would suggest if the board, first of all, I would like you to vote to continue the ban, keep the ban on. It's all within the law. Vote to keep the ban on. And consider what this is going to happen when you vote. If you do vote to legalize this commercial and recreational use in Del Norte County, then you better start building up your treatment centers, because we're going to have a flood of worse drug problems than we can ever dream. And that's where the money's going to go. We're going to have more law enforcement, no matter what the sheriff says. We're going to have more. The Board of Supervisors are going to have to vote him some more money so we can hire more people. This is a very serious problem. I'm concerned about our community. Our community's changed so much already. Let's look for excellence. Will it be next legalizing prostitution or those other vices? We are better than this. We are better than this in Del Norte County. So we don't have to depend on an illegal crop to bring money into Del Norte County. You guys have brains. You men have brains. And Lori, you guys are elected here to represent us and represent the community. We want a family-oriented community. Please reconsider and consider keeping the ban on. And if not, think about the consequences. Seriously, sit back and think, what if we vote to take this ban off and go with these recommendations from this so-called working group? I thank you for the time, and I thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Okay. One more public comment, it looks like, Jesse.
Yeah, Jesse Davis.
You're commenting on your own comments? Or?
Yes, public comment on my report.
Okay.
Just to make it clear. Last night I sent an email to the members of the board. The Journal of American Medicine has a new study that reiterates former studies that shows a significant, very significant reduction in opioid prescription in states where medical cannabis is legal and accessible. So this is not disputable anymore. Legal medical cannabis helps to fight the opioid crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Ms. Cooper.
Eileen Cooper. I was going to suggest that you get a professional opinion from our health officer regarding this matter. And I've come across so many people in this community that rely on cannabis for pain-killing properties, and they don't want to see the ban. They want the convenience of having access to medical marijuana, and I am not in need of marijuana. I never have liked it, but I believe that it's sort of like the days of bootlegging and alcohol, and I think we need to take the whole industry out of the dark. We don't want people in this community buying drugs from irreputable persons, and the purity and health of those drugs is questionable. I think citizens and consumers need safe, healthy products when they purchase things that they need. So, thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment at this time?
I want to remind everybody that the Prop 215 that allows the medical marijuana, that's a totally separate thing. Nobody's being cut off from the medical marijuana if they've got the card, and that's a very little restriction. And also, people can still grow their 6 plants in their house. We don't need the commercial recreational marijuana, you know. And I wish people would quit doing that. You know, you want to feel compassion for people who need it. They're not being stopped. They do have their Prop 215 cards and the dispensaries where they can get their marijuana. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment?
Hello, my name is Aaron Skrobeck. Get my paper out here. It has come to my attention that District 5 County Supervisor Bob Berkowitz recently sent the following email to a member of the Cannabis Working Group. Since this is directed towards the Supervisor, Berkowitz, I'll be using the term member in exchange for the person's name he was referring to in the essence of anonymity. Email from Bob, 4/25/18. Member, I don't think you respect me at all. Here is what I just wrote you as an instant message from Facebook. Member, as you already know, I refuse to engage with you in a public forum after you called me a liar. Now, as a leader of the Cannabis Working Group, you called another board member, Roger Gitlin, a racist and more. With these diatribes against another member of our board, I am rethinking my support for your agenda. I really don't think your post reflects the position of the working group. However, as their spokesperson, you represent them. Therefore, unless you retract some of your wild accusations against a member of our board, I don't think the working group can count on my support. Bob. So if that person did not retract what they said on social media, you were no longer going to support the working group and subsequently change your vote. This brings into question your ethical conduct as a county supervisor. One issue has nothing to do with the other. Either you support this or you do not. You said that you do, but let's take a look back at the temporary and permanent ban. If not for Bob and Roger's stunt, we would have the ban we started with that would have expired automatically. Bob wanted the permanent ban as much as Roger. The first ban was an interim urgency ordinance lasting 30 days. It required a 4/5 vote and must expire in 30 days by state law. All 5 supervisors voted for it. It was a necessary measure to prevent unregulated commercial activity. When the end of the 30-day ban was nearing, the board needed to extend the interim ban while the Cannabis Working Group worked out the regulation. This again required 4/5 vote, but would last 10.5 months as mandated by state law or until repealed by the board. Bob and Roger voted not to extend the temporary ban. Bob voted with Roger because they both knew that it would force the board to adopt a permanent ban. By law, the county can't adopt the same urgency ordinance twice. The only legal option to protect the county from unregulated business was to adopt the ban we have now. Bob and Roger did this because they knew that the voters would not like the idea of a ban and thought it would hurt Chris and Jerry in the election. Bob and Roger are counting on people not understanding what the ban is for. That's why they tried to make a mess of things and lie about the progress of the working group and the other supervisors. It's all politics for them at the expense of the county. What this amounts to is that people cannot trust you on this issue. But it is more important than just this issue. You've just shown that despite the subject matter at hand, if you get your feelings hurt, you'll flip-flop your vote on anything in retaliation. Say what you mean what you say, and do what you say you'll do. Be an honest and trustworthy person. Stop being so two-faced and shady.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks. Any other public comment at this time? Okay, we're going to go ahead and bring it back to the board. This is not an action item on our agenda. It's just a report from our working group. Thank you, Jesse, for that. I don't know if you had any follow-up at this time, but we'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, which is item number 15, which is discuss and direct staff to begin discussions with Harbor Commission on how to provide for porta potties on South Beach as requested by Supervisor Berkowitz. Supervisor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we discussed and discovered last year, thousands of people descend on our area during the 4th of July celebration. Many of them spend a good deal of time enjoying South Beach. Unfortunately, there was no place for them to go when the need presented itself. Consequently, many took matters into their own hands and utilized the area in the bushes on the east side of Highway 101, thus creating a very unsanitary situation. Now, last year we solved the problem. In partnership with the Crescent City Harbor District, we opted to fund the placement of 3 portable toilets, I believe for 3 days. This year, the 4th of July falls on a Wednesday, so it would seem prudent to have toilets there for just 2 days, the 3rd and the 4th, and to have them picked up on Thursday, the 5th. We should be able to obtain a free encroachment permit through Caltrans, as we did last year, for 3 units from Roto-Rooter with delivery to Crescent City. The total cost should not exceed about $750, with our share of $375. If this request is approved for this year, I would like to have it added to our budget as a continuing expense not to exceed $400 per year, and that it's sunset in 5 years. So, Mr. Chairman, at this point, I'd like to move that we budget $400 for portable toilets on South Beach for 2 days during the 4th of July celebration, and that we contact the Crescent City Harbor Commission to provide a matching amount.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Let's open it up for public comment. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it, please.
Hi, Eileen Cooper. I do support and appreciate this motion. I also would like better monitoring of the beach or signs, perhaps on the along with the porta potties, making people aware of trash. I think we need more trash cans along there as well during the events. And the surf riders and environmental community comes out every year, and it's such a big mess afterwards, and there's no way to get all those little, all that stuff out. Sometimes the tide comes in before the volunteers can come. So there needs to be a real concerted effort to keep that trash to a minimum on the beach. Make sure that we care for our beach that evening, and people pack it in and pack it out, and we have adequate restrooms and trash disposal. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment at this time?
I'm Kent, and I'm still from Gasky. I want to thank, I'm not in a position to second your motion, but I'm behind Bob on this. The porta potties, as well as the lady pointed out, the trash cans need to be at the South Beach for this, at every event, no matter if it's 4th of July weekend or not, or the car show or whatever it might be. More porta potties and trash cans do need to be provided, because that keeps people from urinating and defecating right in front of public, and kids and women that don't really, and men that just don't want to see it. And it's not good for them to even be around that environment. So yes, porta potties and trash cans. That way the trash isn't all piled up all over the side of the street, and you have to hire somebody to go pick it all up. It's there provided to put the trash in. Not always does people use the trash cans, even if it's 3 feet away from them. They still throw the cups down on the ground. But however, if they were provided, at least they would know not to throw their trash on the ground. There is people that will use the trash cans. Now, on that note, since I wasn't able to say anything before. The doctor pointed out the opium situation. Well, Trump has now made the opium, going after the opium dealers and closing them down, which is the doctors, because the doctors are the ones prescribing the Oxycontins and all the other things that need to be done for patients. And some of them are just flukes and just give out the prescriptions because they're nice people. There's other doctors that give out prescriptions for the Oxycontins and the opium drugs because the people actually need them. Those are the doctors to keep. You don't have to go after the doctors as the opium dealers. You need to go after the pharmaceutical companies that are in it for the millions and billions of dollars coming in and don't care if they have people strung out on their dope to get those billions of dollars. That's who really needs to be addressed and go after, not the doctors prescribing the medications.
Thank you. Other public comment at this time? Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board. We have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion from the board? Okay, Kylie, please pull the vote.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. On our agenda is item number 16, which is approve and authorize the chair to sign and send a letter of support of the Hambro parcel from private ownership to public title transfer to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife as requested by the California Department of Transportation. Before you today, you do have a draft letter which is specifically utilizing this parcel, which is the spruce grove that was referred to earlier in our conversation for mitigation, for mitigation projects in particular, including last chance grade. This is before you today as I believe the Department of Fish and Wildlife has requested input from the board on this. Also, I think the project proponents both are in the room today. We could take public comment from them if folks are interested. But at this point, I'd like to open it up for public comment on item number 16. Don't be shy, Eileen.
Long-awaited item.
We're here. It's still morning, so you're good.
So I was thrilled this weekend to see this item on your agenda. It's been of great concern to the environmental community that this magnificent spruce grove that we have on our southern gateway remains our beautiful gateway. And I have a letter of support from EPIC supporting the Department of Fish and Wildlife's efforts to purchase the spruce grove near the south end of Crescent City. It's an important and immediate conservation benefit, protecting this important spruce forest, coastal forest, and it illustrates the verdant natural beauty of the county. And the purchase of these lands helped to settle an issue of public controversy, the potential logging of a rare coastal forest in a civil manner that benefits all sides. So I have that letter from EPIC to submit. I also bring your attention, if you would like, an electronic copy, but please don't make me print all these up, but all these petitions signed by citizens, 300 in a very short time for the public comment period regarding the actual timber harvest plan of that parcel, which is the other alternative to lose that grove. And so here, in just a few weeks, 300 people signed and submitted comments to that timber harvest plan, stating what a loss to this county it would be.
Looks like you got a pretty good staff.
So, you have many people's blessing in this effort to conserve that gateway, and it's a beloved view. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Public comment.
Well, I didn't mean to be up here a third time, but this is, I can't resist it. Liz Freeman, District 5. I have a couple questions which I should have done research. I did not. I apologize for that.
No worries.
But this is something I think needs to be spoken out publicly where we can all hear it. This says it's going from private ownership, the Hambro parcel, to the transfer to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, as requested by Caltrans. I don't know why Caltrans is requesting it, but like I said, I haven't done my research on this properly. This, also, you mentioned something about last chance grade on this. How many acres are in it? How much land is this going to take off of our tax rolls? We just talked about that. How much money will we be losing in our tax dollars paid to Del Norte County every year on this? How much money are we paying out to Hambro or whoever owns it now? It's called a Hambro parcel, but I don't know who owns it. It would be nice to know that.
Hambro.
And how much money are we going to lose on the tax dollar? We just had this conversation 2 weeks ago or last month that we don't want to take land off the tax roll. We have hardly any land left in private ownership. But yes, this is going to be taken off and everybody's applauding it. I think we need a little clarification. I'd appreciate some answers to those questions before you folks take a vote. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Liz. Please, public comment.
West White County resident. I think I can answer some of the questions you have.
If you could direct them towards us, Wes.
I'm sorry?
Appreciate it. If you could direct them towards us. Thanks.
The parcel itself is comprised of about 159 acres, of which Caltrans is acquiring 132.8 acres. Hambro owns the parcel and is intending to retain 25.9 acres. Of that acreage, the county says 25.5 acreage is zoned manufacturing and industrial, which Hambro will retain. It's a mixed zoning between timber production zone, which, as I said, was the majority of it, and the remainder is manufacturing and industrial, which, as I mentioned, Hambro is going to retain. The assessed value on the TPZ portion of it is roughly $6,400. I spent some time at the auditor's office as well as the assessor's office, and so the value coming into the county would be, or total taxation would be $64 per year on that TPZ portion of it. As I understand it, there's a small portion that actually goes to the county, and my understanding is that's 20%. I don't know if that's correct or not, but so 20% of $64 is what would be lost. Now, one could argue that, well, there's timber harvestable on that, which there is. Whether or not it can be harvested is another question. But the value of that timber, if we were to cut it, and the taxes on that, which is at a rate of 2.9%, would amount to a county revenue of annualized about $180 to $280 per year. That's if you can harvest it and at current market prices at the mill. So, point one, I think I would like to see this board send their approval for the support of this, because there's very little tax revenue coming off of that. The gain from the sale of this would retire debt for Hambro, which, as you all know, is a local company, and that capital would be reinvested and help to expand Hambro. And number three, I forgot to mention, this is for mitigation. That's what Caltrans is acquiring it to. for 4 projects, Wackel Creek, Panther Creek, Dr. Fine Bridge, and potentially Last Chance Grade. The last thing I wanted to mention was that the dollars that would be gained by Hambro would go to their bottom line, which would improve the net worth of the company because of the retirement of debt. And Hambro is 100% owned by the employees. The largest employee ownership share is 6% in Hambro. So what does that mean? That means 90% of the shares are owned by residents of Hambro, so that revenue will come back into the pockets of residents of Hambro, and that hopefully will be spent by those residents in Del Norte County. So I'd urge your approval of this letter.
Thank you, Wes. Appreciate it. Public comment. Liz? Liz? Sorry. Please. Please.
Thank you for hearing this. I'm Steve Joe from Caltrans. So as Wes was saying, that this project or this proposal will take care of 4 transportation projects for mitigation needs within Del Norte County. The letter that you have, from what I understand, talks about one of the items is that how difficult it is to find mitigation in Del Norte County, and this has been something we've been working on for all these projects for several years, and this proposal's been over the last year. So if you have specific questions about what entails this proposal and what the mitigation needs are, I'm happy to answer that. So, thank you.
Thank you for being open to that, Steve. Okay. Quickly, Liz, thank you.
One that didn't get answered, perhaps I didn't make it plain. I would like to know how much money Hambro is being paid for this parcel. Obviously, it's going to be out of our tax dollar somewhere up the line.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Wes, I don't know if you guys would want to disclose it or not. It's entirely up to you. But it is, thank you. All right, let's go ahead and bring it back to the board. Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes, thank you very much, Wes, for coming up and giving some edification on this. What wasn't addressed is the remainder of the 25 acres and how that's going to be developed at a new tax rate. If I'm not mistaken, there is an existing 5-bedroom house on there now. It's being renovated, and I'm sure subject to reassessment. And then what is the plan for the privately owned sector, not the 159 acres that you're selling, or the 125, but the 25 that's remaining? What is the plan, and how will that enhance our tax base here in Del Norte County?
As Dave Slagle, I'm the CEO for Hambro, current resident of Crescent City. We don't have any concrete plans, but we're already going forward with remodeling a beach house that's on the property, a 5-bedroom house that we look to successfully rent out. It's currently zoned as a watchman's quarter. We also are using the funds to help with the cleanup of the Hambro Mill site, as some of you may be aware, has been in a distorted state for a period of time. So this benefits what future plans for the 25 acres. We don't have any specific plans, but we think we have a potential there to develop that in a significant way. So when you drive into Crescent City, the first thing you see won't be our rusted old building with a burl shop. We've upgraded that. The kite shop's moved in. That looks better. Our house is looking better. And what else can we do to present Crescent City in a better light? We've started on it with these funds. Not only will we retire debt, but a great portion of that we'll be able to use for capital improvements, not just on the 25 acres, but on the mill site as well. So we're open to suggestions. So if you've got some good plans, we're open to it. This gives us something to develop. Do you have any other questions on that?
No, I think that's very clear. It sounds like there's some plans up front that will actually build the tax base after the modest income that's being coming in from the TPC zone. It's not very much money. I didn't quite understand the $6,400, and if it was 19 cents on the dollar we get back, so is it total $6,400 taxes that are coming in on the 159, and then less goes to the state and comes back to Del Norte County at 19 cents on the dollar. Can you clarify that just for a moment?
Well, the $6,400 is what is paid in property tax. 19% of that comes back to Del Norte County, so the $12 we think is not going to adversely affect the economic condition of Del Norte County.
Great, thank you, sir.
Clarify 100%. The actual tax bill on the whole parcel is $5,734, of which about $64 is for the TPZ, which Caltrans is going to acquire, of which the county receives 19%. So hopefully that's clarifying.
Okay, so that kind of just made it a little bit fuzzier. I want to make sure. So this includes the 25 acres where their house is located. That's part of the tax bill. 159 acres total.
159 acres.
Of which there is a house and other things, other properties there. $6,400 total. The TPC zone, which is the majority of the property, comes out to $64 a year. So the $5,700 is no doubt going to be reassessed at a higher rate. I would assume that.
On the commercial zone, yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes,
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing I would encourage you to think about is these projects, because land is so hard to acquire for mitigation, and you've got a willing seller and a willing buyer, how will this impact the 4 projects mentioned, as well as how will this potentially impact the relationship you have with Caltrans? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, discussion from staff.
Mr. Chairman, I think I'd just like to commend Hambro for finally cleaning up that property. It's been a long time coming, and now it looks like it's finally on the last legs of being cleaned up, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any other comments at this time? Can I have a motion? Supervisor Hemmingson?
I'll make that motion to approve and authorize the chair to sign and send a letter of support of the Hambro parcel APN 115-2018 from private ownership to public transfer to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife as requested by Caltrans.
And I'd like to have a change to the letter made. I'm certainly in support of this action.
Can we have a second if there's one coming before we have
Sure,
discussion?
I'll second that.
Okay. Sorry, Supervisor Hemmingson.
I would like to see this property be put into a wildlife area, either attached to the adjacent wildlife area if there is one, or made its own wildlife area. That way there is no net loss to the county because of the PILT that the Fish and Wildlife is supposed to pay to the county. So I'd like to see that added to the letter, that we are supportive of it if it is in a wildlife area.
So specifically added to the Crescent City Marsh Wildlife Area would be the terminology that we'd look for. Would that
Do
be
you need a new second or a new motion? Or?
I'll amend my motion to include that if it's possible. I don't know the configuration of the parcel, but if it's possible, I
It's
think that
directly
makes...
adjacent to it, Supervisor.
Okay, then I'll amend that to
that.
include that,
Thank you.
that change.
Okay, we do have a motion, a second with that correction. Kylie, can you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. All right, we're going to take a short recess. We'll come back in 5 minutes, so those that have to go, go. If not, we'll start back up at 12:05. Thank you. Sorry, I was getting the... up item number 17, which is introduce the personal cannabis cultivation ordinance by title only, waive further reading, and set hearing to adopt the ordinance, and designate county council to prepare a summary of the ordinance for publications requested by county council. I know Joel's not with us today. I spoke to him this morning. He's in court across the street. Judge Follett said he needed to be there. So I'm sorry, Liz, you've been tasked with this one, but.
So he is actually on a break, so it's possible that he might be able to be here to answer some questions. However, I'm happy to answer anything that I can. Basically, this is the personal cultivation piece that's allowed in the Health and Safety Code 11.3.62.1 and the several sections after. This is, as you probably know by now, the people are over 21 years old, are allowed to possess, plant, cultivate, harvest, dry, or process not more than 6 cannabis plants under the state regulatory system without a license. And in the following section, the Health and Safety Code allows for local governments not to restrict those safe plants, but to create, 6 plants rather, but to create reasonable regulations in regard to those 6 plants. And so that is what this ordinance is. I believe Jesse Davis is here. Joel Campbell-Blair is now here. If anyone wants to ask anything policy related as to why the working group came up with the parameters that they came up with, or any other specific questions. It did go through, Joel did a presentation probably about a month ago on both this and the tax ordinance on what would be presented to the Planning Commission, to this board. Then this was presented to the Planning Commission. They had a couple of questions and then sent it on with a positive vote to this board.
Okay, thank you very much, Liz. Joel, is there anything you'd like to add at this time before we bring it to discussion with the board? Yeah, please. Thank you.
Are you here to answer questions, or do you have any more presentation, Joe?
I have no more presentation. This stuff has been here twice. It's been to the Planning Commission. It's probably, there's nobody even here that cares that much. Look at them.
Yes, I didn't see as you're walking through. So basically, this is the 215 card from 1996, allowing personal cannabis cultivation.
This is a component of Prop 64 that legalized it. It's not necessarily medical.
No, it's not. It can be done just for personal use.
Personal use. Anybody who's 21 or older gets to do this. 6 plants, 1 residence.
Now, this is not subject to county approval. This is not an option. The county cannot remove this protocol.
Right.
That's I think I want to underscore that. Let me ask my question first before you give us that. So I want to make sure that this county has no oversight on what it can and cannot do with regard to Prop 64 as it relates to the 6 plant protocol. Is that right?
The 6 plants is something that we have to allow. We can't prevent it. We can't put regulations on it to restrict it reasonably, and these are those restrictions. So it's some setback requirements, some square footage requirements. But yeah, there's a basic minimum we have to allow. This restricts further than what's currently allowed.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Other questions for Joel at this time?
Yep. Before you sit down, stand up, sit down kind of thing, Joel. The only thing that, and I guess I kind of missed this for 6 plants, and the tier 3 and allowing 300 square feet. What was the reasoning behind that? I guess I missed that as being part of the personal use part of this. I mean, I can understand 100 square feet, that makes sense, a little 10 by 10 deal, but now we're talking about 15 by whatever, 20.
Yeah, so, you know, right now, there's no restrictions. You could do your 6 plants, they could be 500 square feet or 1,000 or however big you can grow. The working group's kind of feeling was if you have enough land to give it that 100-foot setback from your neighbors, it's permissible, it's not going to intrude on your neighbors' quiet enjoyment of the property to allow a larger grow. Whether it's like terribly important that we allow them to grow more, you know, these are the recommendations of the working group.
Okay. My other question is, does this become taxable then for square footage?
No, because this is just, this is non-commercial. So our tax authority is attached to permits and licenses, and this is just something that anybody can do, be like taxing a backyard garden.
Well, but before you said if they had illegal, if it was an illegal grow, then we could tax that.
If it's bigger than 6 plants, then it will be not a personal garden anymore. It will be basically illegally growing without a permit.
Okay, understood.
So if you got a 7th plant, we'll come and tax you.
So the big question for me again on this is the potential for odors. Brought that up several times. Does the section 2 under public nuisance, how does that either confine or restrict?
Well, so creating odors on your property that interfere with your neighbor's ability to enjoy their property is a nuisance anyway. Cannabis is a pretty straightforward one because you can go in there and say, you know, neighbor's yard smells like cannabis so bad I can't go in my backyard. You know, it's not like maybe a lesser known odor. It's fairly on the radar. I think we should have a fairly reasonably easy time enforcing that. Now, there are, my hope, the kind of policy hope, is that we've made those setbacks at the right amount, that if you have an odor you're producing, you're probably violating your setback. And it would be, you know, my hope, my intention that the working group would continue to monitor this, and if we don't have those setbacks right, instead of going in there on all these nuisance abatement hearings talking about it smells bad, we should be going in and saying we measured, it's the wrong line. So if we need to change those setbacks, we could do it easily. We have a structure in place, we have a system in place, we have an ordinance, we can just go in and say it's not going to be 10 feet anymore, it's going to be 25, things like that.
Supervisor.
A follow-up question with regard to the setbacks. So there's, if 100 feet doesn't prove to be satisfactory in abating your neighbors, the odor to your neighbor, then a neighbor could via a complaint to and through code enforcement bring that to the attention of the planning commission or the board, either one, and that 100-foot setback could be discussed and to see about if it's enlarged, kind of like raising the height of a building or lowering the height, or for coastal commission purview.
Yeah.
This would be the same kind of discussion.
This will be a lot easier than that because that's a zoning ordinance. We could change probably fairly. I mean, we'd talk about whether we'd send out to the planning commission on stuff, but it wouldn't go to coastal commission to be fussed with, I don't think. But yeah, we could change it.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for Joel at this time? Let's go ahead and open it up for public comment. We're going to open it up for public comment, Joel. No problem.
Hello, Aaron Skirback. I'd like some clarification on a statement that you, Chris Howard, made on KFUG. Does the retail and commercial cultivation ordinance have to be a 4/5 vote to pass? It was my understanding that this only needed to be a 3/5 vote to pass. If in fact it does need to be 4/5, why is that? Is that because of the tax associated with it? Perhaps council could weigh in and give a definitive answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. One more. Just other public comment at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Joel, can you help me out with that, please?
Yeah, so you've got basically 3, I think, votes that kind of treat as one. It's only a 3/5 vote to waive the reading. It's only a 3/5 vote to set the hearing, introduce by title only. The only time it's going to be 4/5 vote is if it's a tax or if it's an urgency ordinance, which we had back in December. It was a 4/5 vote.
Okay, so something like this before us on personal use is a 3/5?
Yes.
And commercial?
It will also be 3/5.
And retail?
That will also be 3/5.
Thank you.
From here on out, unless it's a tax or an urgency item, 3/5.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Joel, for the clarification. Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. Other comment or discussion from the board at this time? Okay. Do we have a motion then on the table?
I make a motion to introduce the personal cannabis cultivation ordinance by title only, waive further reading, set a hearing to adopt ordinance, and designate county council to prepare a summary of the ordinance for publication as requested by county council.
Okay, we have a motion on the table.
Second.
And a second. Further discussion? Okay. Kylie, please pull the vote.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. All right, thank you. We're going to go ahead and move on with budget transfer items at this time. Item 18, 19, and 20, which are budget transfer item 05-02 in the amount of $875. Budget item 05-03 in the amount of $50,000. And budget item 05-04 in the amount of $30,700.
Move for approval.
We have a motion on the table.
Second.
And a second. Public comment, please, on budget transfer items. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a couple of questions regarding edification, budget transfer items 19 and 20, and I'm wondering, Heidi, are you here? Yes. Heidi, you're here. Would you just explain to the public where this, how this $50,000 is going to be allocated within the budget? There's some public questions coming to my attention, and I wonder if you'd put it on the record. And likewise, for Jay, would you explain the $30,700, how it's, what its purpose is?
Earlier this calendar year, all county departments and other agencies were asked whether or not they would like to apply for a FEMA emergency management performance grant through our OES, and the Roads Division put in a request for several different items, including money for an equipment trailer, $25,000. The requirement for this grant is that you have to match the grant amount. So we need $25,000 from our department allotment in order to make the total for $50,000 in order to purchase the equipment trailer. And we were asked to complete this prior to the end of this fiscal year, and which is why we have it at this point rather than folding it into the fiscal year 18-19 budget.
Thank you, Heidi. Appreciate it. Okay. Jay?
So the transfer for the $30,700 is actually part of a grant that's received through the Office of Emergency Services. The money comes in and then it has to be allocated to specific projects. Those are outlined in regards to the budget transfer request. So some funds are going to the road department, some are going to environmental health, and some to an outside agency, which is essentially a subrecipient of the grant. As you go through that grant process, this money is then approved for certain allocations. So it then is dispersed. This is the dispersal process.
Okay, I do have some follow-up questions with regard to this. Now, this involves board purview over threshold amounts of money that are being spent. Is that how I'm understanding this?
I think you're confusing it with the next item.
Okay.
This is a budget transfer.
All right. I'm sorry. I was looking at, I am confusing that. All right. All right. So this $30,000 has been pre-allocated to these departments. Just go over that one more time, Jay, so I can hear this.
So the county receives funding through a grant to the Office of Emergency Services, and then there are subrecipients or projects that the money is then allocated to once that money is received, and those are approved. This is that dispersal process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Further questions, staff? Okay, Kylie, please pull the vote.
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. Okay, we're going to move on with legislative and budget issues, where we consider miscellaneous legislative and budget matters pertinent to the County of Del Norte. Authorize the chair to sign and separate appropriate letters with respect to matters pending before the state or federal governments. We have item 21, which is discuss and take action on Senate Bill 623, water quality. Safe and affordable drinking water fund is requested by County Administrative Officer. Before we get started on this item, Liz, I have a question for you on this specific to whether or not I could participate in this conversation. part of the proposed legislation impacts permitting fees essentially around dairies. Not sure if I should recuse myself or not, as part of the fee structure proposed with this Senate bill does impact dairies, which obviously one of my employers is a dairy.
So kind of on the fly, I mean, I think if you have concerns about it, it's probably best to go ahead and recuse. In general, if there's, you know, a specific personal financial gain regarding taking an action, that's when a board member would want to recuse themselves. You know, as our office doesn't do binding opinions, but FPPC is always there, so.
Can I still make public comment on it as a representative of the industry, or no?
I mean,
Probably
I would think it would
Okay.
probably be best.
I'm
to
going to
just go ahead and
recuse myself then from item number 21. Supervisor Hemmingson, item 21 is yours.
Okay. So we will take up the discussion. Jay, you want to?
So this was sprung on us last week through the trailer bill process. It was brought up, I believe, by Supervisor Berkowitz also. The process that this has gone through is basically fast-tracked a 2-year bill that would put a fee on individual public water users. So if you're on a public water system, you would get a fee, which is roughly about $1 on each bill. It would also put a fee on dairy producers and on fertilizer producers, and the money would then be earmarked for those types of systems that are not, or that are failing essentially, that are public systems, and those are defined by the state of California. So if you have a system that isn't meeting the requirements of the state, apparently they're going to then shift this money around to be able to bring them up to a position of being suitable. This is fairly widely opposed by water users, obviously through the ag industry. They believe that there are other funds out there that should be allocated and there shouldn't be an additional burden put on the individual water users and or the industries.
Okay. Any public comment on this?
Eileen Cooper, I would like more information on this, as it being such short notice. I don't have a clear idea of what all the benefits would be, and there was no information in the public packet for the agenda. So I think it might aid, possibility that it might aid dairy users that need to fix their systems. There's that aspect of it. So would like more information. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Liz Freeman.
Yep.
A comment. I feel pretty much the way Eileen just mentioned. It's the thing that I would, having not researched this either, I wasn't aware this was on the agenda, which is my fault, I'm sure. However, it says it's about a fee. Is that correct? Is that what I'm saying? They're going to place a fee somehow on these water users? My suggestion is this: always err on the side of caution. And this is actually is very typical of ours, because this is from the state legislature, I'm assuming. Senate bill. So they are very good at taxing us in any little way that they can find. The way I see this, without really researching the bill intricately and without any more time, because it says today that you're going to take action, then I would err on the side of caution and vote against this, because this is immediately we see another fee, and we're all feed to death, which is basically illegal taxes. And I don't know, I'm all for water quality. I've worked really hard. We've had 2 elections back in the day in the 70s for our water district, and water is so important to all of us. It's our lifeblood. So until there's more research or something that we can explain what the intricacies of this bill is and how it affects each one of us, because it's going to affect us either in our water districts or at the market when we go to buy milk or we go to buy fertilizer or whatever. I would, and we're all, of course, for safe and affordable drinking water. But right now, I just see it without further research as when it says a fee, that this is another tax that's going to be put on us by the state government. Thank you very much.
Yeah, my recollection is that it was about 90 cents for a water user or something like that.
I believe it's 97, yes.
Yeah.
And I apologize that the language isn't in there. I thought it was going to be, but what I can say is that this language that's currently there is supported through the legislature and has been fast-tracked at the request of the governor. If the board chooses to oppose it, we will get a letter in. I'm assuming that it's going to get approved by the governor because this is I don't know how to put it, but it's a favorite of his. But at the same time, it is a fee, and it is, the wording says on public water users, and then also the industries, fertilizer producers and dairy producers.
Yes.
I have a question, Jay. So part of it is, what's the status of Senate Bill 623? Is it in committee? Where does it stand right now? And then a follow-up question after that.
I believe when I last looked, it was in appropriations.
Okay, so the Senate is moving forward on, and our letter, either opposing or supporting, would be we support SB 623 or we oppose it. Is that what I'm seeing as the action that would be taken in item number 21?
That's correct, and
Okay.
I would form that into a letter from the Board of Supervisors. The bill, as I mentioned earlier, was made into a 2-year bill, which was going to delay it into this next legislative session, and this came out in the trailer bill just last week. There were a few trailer bills that came out, and this was one of them.
So in your opinion, do you think this, if we tabled this action until we had more information on this, per Ms. Freeman's request, and then I think one other individual, yes, she came up here and discussed this, to know exactly how does this impact? Will it affect all water districts? Will it affect our drinking water in the city? I'm a little in the dark as to what SB 623 covers, or is it just agricultural?
Again, the language says public water users, so I'm assuming that that is anybody that is on a public water system.
Okay.
And to your first question, yes, it probably will be late. I can't say when they're going to send that to the governor, but I would think that this letter is going to not just go to the Senate, but it's going straight to the governor if it's in opposition.
Mr. Chairman, has this also gone before the Assembly yet?
I believe they have a companion bill.
So this looks like it's so fast-tracked that even if we wanted to get more information by the next board meeting, I think we're going to be behind the curve. Do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the discussion was, but it seems like the Assembly had a similar bill, but it wasn't exactly the same, so it will go to conference and they'll iron things out, is my recollection. What's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I think I would like to move that we reject this bill and vote no on SB 623, Water Quality, Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund.
So that's a letter of opposition, Supervisor Berkowitz?
Correct.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Did I have public comment already? Public comment? I think I already did, Okay. Kylie, would you poll the vote, please?
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Okay, now I want to be clarified that this is a letter of opposition.
Opposition, correct.
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hemmingson?
Yes. Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and move forward with item number 22, which is approve and authorize an increase in the amount of single budget transfers that can be authorized and approved jointly by the auditor, controller, and the county administrative officer, and authorize an amendment to section 2.40.010A of the administration manual to reflect the change as requested by county administrative officer and the auditor, controller. Jay?
This came up through a discussion through the budget process and also discussions with departments over the years. The allocations or the maximums for which the auditor or which the county administrative officer can approve a budget transfer for a department are relatively low. They reflect numbers from many, many years ago. And for a flexibility for the departments, it's been requested that we consider increasing those numbers to be similar to what a purchase order is, which is up to $10,000. Currently, anything up to $1,000, and you just did see a transfer on there for $875. It probably shouldn't have been on the agenda because it would have been approved by me, but it was on there anyway, so you approved it. But up to $1,000, I can sign those for the department and get those through the system. The request or recommendation today would make a change to those numbers, which would require an approval by myself, but also by the auditor controller. And essentially for flexibility for the departments, like I said, the $10,000 maximum is reflective of what a current purchase order maximum is, which is $9,999.99, not the $10,000. But that's essentially where this came from. This is reflected in the admin manual, so you'll see in the recommendation that it would amend the language in there to change those numbers. But of course, this is a decision of the board, and that's the recommendation before you today.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve an increase in the amount of a single budget transfer that can be authorized and approved jointly by the auditor, controller, and the county administrative officer.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the table.
I have an
Public
alternate motion. Is that appropriate at this time?
Sure.
Well, I'd like to see that the purview continue with our general fund. And I see that I can understand 1,000 being probably in 1950 or 1960 dollars and 10,000 being, but I'd like to see what's going through our general fund at the present level, $1,000 or more. So I think it'd be wise to, this particular agenda item is for $125 million budget, but I would like to continue to, as a supervisor, continue to review and look at the even some of the more modest ones, under $10,000 that involve our general fund. So I'd ask for a second on that.
So there's a motion and a second on the table, and then a request for a second motion. Do we have a second to that motion by Supervisor Gitlin? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move forward with public comment on item number 22. Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. Kylie, please poll the vote.
Sorry, I'm a little mixed up here. I was on the second page.
No worries.
Supervisor Gitlin?
No.
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. All right, before we do item number 23, we're going to move to item 24, which we added as an emergency item today. Before you see a letter addressed to Carrie and Rich of the Business Energy and Cooperative Program Director for the State of California USDA Rural Development. This came into us yesterday. The letter is due back to them on the 25th, which is next week. This is specifically requesting funds, and in this case matching funds, for some expansion of a rural economic development finance guidebook that will not only serve the county but serve businesses in our community to help them educate on what available resources are out there to explore business development in our community. Hopefully, with those available dollars, businesses will explore those opportunities. But the first step is actually get a guidebook in place, and this letter hopefully will address that.
Move for approval.
We have a motion on the table. And a second. Public comment. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board. Kylie, please pull the vote.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. All right. At this time, we're going to go ahead and move forward with our other brief announcements and committee reports. Supervisor Berkowitz, please kick us off today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last week, along with my fellow supervisors, we attended the California State Association of Counties Conference in Sacramento. Now, while there, I was privileged to present my ideas on how to get CSAC counties involved in the Governor's Commission on Sports Betting. With the CSAC at the table, we can ensure that any legislation dealing with sports betting, that the counties can be at the table to guarantee that they will get benefits from any resulting taxation. I attended sessions with conversations with legislative leaders. I attended a workshop on what's at stake for counties on the 2018 ballot, a luncheon with the governor, and a National Association of Counties focus group on making the group more responsive to local needs. But the most interesting meeting for me was the one on housing, land use, and transportation. Both Supervisor Hemmingson and I attended this session. The main panelist was Senator Scott Wiener, who represents San Francisco. In the question and answer session, I asked him on how he could reconcile the fact that the legislature complains that there's not enough affordable housing, and yet every time we turn around, they're causing the prices of homes to increase. An example was the $30,000 in extra costs for solar panels, which are going to be mandated for new homes in 2020, new sprinkler requirements for new homes, and new real estate fees, which can increase the home a total of over $50,000. His answer showed how out of touch he is with those of us who live in rural California. He said that the $50,000 was a minor expense. Well, it may be a minor cost in San Francisco, where the average three-bedroom home sells for $1.7 million, but not here in Del Norte County, which the average three-bedroom home is just over $220,000. Yes, he thinks the addition of 25% of the cost of home here in Del Norte County is a minor expense. It's senators like Mr. Wiener who only consider their decisions from the perspective of large metropolitan areas when making legislative proposals that really are detrimental to us in rural California. In other news, since the County News article concerning the daily town hall meeting was published last week in the County News, I've received numerous phone calls asking that I talk about this innovative approach at the NACO conference in July. In addition to being profiled in the front page of the County News, I've since learned that the daily town hall meeting has been a NACO Achievement Award winner for 2018. And that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Supervisor. Supervisor Cowan.
Thank you, Chair. I attended the Last Chance Stakeholders meeting. They presented the risk assessment report that's recently come out, along with a time frame for the remainder of the year. So we just had the risk assessment was just published. There'll be a public meeting for anybody interested on Last Chance grade. That'll be July 18th. There will be a value analysis done somewhere in the middle of August and hopefully be completed by October. And then hopefully also by October, they're expecting the preliminary geotech results. That's from that first $5 million that was awarded to us last May. They went into the geotechnical studies, so we'll see results from that in October. The other $5 million we've got in March. Can you turn that off for a second? Okay. The other $5 million that we received in March will go for other environmental studies, and those will begin in the spring of 19. With the preliminary results of the geotechnical studies, that will initiate the CEQA and the NEPA process. This is all on last chance grade. Had a meeting with Heather Snow regarding recreational activities for kids. Attended the graduation of College of the Redwoods out at the Tallawah Dean Nation Event Center. We had a Solid Waste Authority meeting, which we went over the budget, which we approved today at today's meeting. I also went to SAC last week, to the legislative days, and attended many workshops and meetings while I was there. I always make a point to use my time in Sacramento when I'm over there for the fullest. So I don't only go to the ledge days that you'll hear everybody talking about, but I also schedule other meetings before and after what's lined out for us with the conference. So also while in Sacramento, I met with Assemblyman Woods and we discussed healthcare. I just met with Senator McGuire and we discussed homelessness along with various other topics, and met with Paul Schneider from Federal Highways Authority, talking about last chance grade and everything that's going on there as well. We reviewed the risk assessment that we had done also at the stakeholders group. Went over with him with Federal Highways, talked about that with him as well. And I feel all these meetings and relationships are really important. It's how we bring the issues of Del Norte County, being in a rural area, to them, because otherwise all they do is they hear from the legislation from these suburban counties, and that has nothing to do with us here in Del Norte County. So I make it a point to really reach out to everybody else that makes them, that's important, and make sure that they hear what's going on and what our needs are up here in little old Del Norte County. Thank you.
Please, Supervisor Gillen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, as many of you know, I was out at the last meeting. I do want to give some well-deserved recognition to the people that really literally saved my life. Had a collapse of my C1 and my C2, and I was rushed down to UCSF. And of course, being who I am, I always said, no, I can take care of this. And they said, no, you can't. So thank you, Dr. Volger in radiology. Thank you, Dr. Duncan, my orthopedist. Thank you, Dr. Caldwell. Emergency room, Dr. Pack, and all the great staff down at UCSF, Dr. Clark and his neurosurgery team. I am recuperating as we speak. Also via the phone, participated in the emergency medical services meeting, which was held in Eureka. That was May 4th, and we conducted mostly financial business, but we did approve the annual trauma center fees and extended contracts. We approved accepting the report by the Humboldt County Exclusive Operating Area Update and Meeting Request, which will be in June. And we requested we approved the utilization of the MedNet Trust Fund at that meeting, which was held, as I said, telephonically. Met the candidates from the Republican Central Committee last Wednesday. Lots of interesting folks moving forward and to hopefully be successful in Sacramento as they get ready for the election June 5th. And participated in the California Coastal Trails Walk last Saturday and took a nice walk, and no pain involved, and from Shep Ashore to the state line. So that's my report.
Supervisor Hemmingson.
Yes, thank you. Well, I went down to Eureka, down to the Warfinger building to a going away party for Merv George, who was our forest supervisor for the Six Rivers National Forest. He is moving to the Rogue Siskiyou National Forest. It's a promotion for him. But he will be just right across the border, so hopefully we'll have some interaction with him, and he'll be helpful on that side of the border. Also moving to different forests were Leslie Courtwright and Michael Green and James, and I'm sorry I forget his last name. I hadn't worked much with him, but they had a pretty good send-off for all these guys. They've all been very helpful to us throughout with the travel management plan, as well as the Smith River National Recreation Area Collaborative. So I'm sorry to see them go, but glad that they're moving up the ladder. They're all very capable people, and they were very nice to work with. So maybe we'll see them down the road at some point. As was mentioned, had the CSAC Ledge Conference, and Supervisor Cowan says when we go there, we try to make use of every minute of our time while we're not at the Ledge Conference. And so I had a whale entanglement group meeting with Senator McGuire, Zonky Mastrip from Fish and Wildlife, as well as the Director of Fish and Wildlife, Chuck Bonham. And there were others, and it was a phone conference, so we had other people on the phone. So a very productive meeting, talking about his omnibus bill, which it looks like we are sending through. So hopefully that makes it. At the conference itself, I thought the workshop on building more resilient counties, with James Gore from Sonoma County moderating, he just did an absolutely excellent job. Of course, dealing with the fires that they had in Sonoma County, Santa Rosa in particular, the things that they did right and the things that they did wrong, you know, and to be able to present that to other counties so that we can prepare our counties for emergency situations was invaluable. That was really a really good workshop. Of course, we had a luncheon with Governor Jerry Brown, and of course his insightfulness in saying that nothing ever gets solved, there are no solutions, and we're all going to die, I think was a capper. Anyway. We also had a Coastal Counties Regional Association meeting, which I'm a co-chair of. We had presentations from the Coastal Commission, talked about some blight things. We had a presentation from State Coastal Conservancy having to do with the Coastal Trail, as well as the Park Bond, and a presentation from the Ocean Protection Council on sea level rise and changing ocean conditions. It was mentioned earlier, there was a candidates forum, the the social justice organization put on a candidates forum, and it's really sad to see that the other candidates didn't have the intestinal fortitude to stand up to the questions that were presented there. Really disappointing, because the youth are our future, and you know, we need to, I think it was great that they were there with thoughtful questions, and that you know, at least Supervisor Howard and I were there to answer them to the best of our knowledge, and then we got to have more interaction with them because the others didn't show up. There was more time, so we got to interact with them. I thought was really good. And then, as was stated by somebody earlier, I think it was Donna Westfall, who's thanked us for being at the community choice aggregation, which had to do with electrical supply companies. So we're looking at that, and we'll see how that goes. That was it for me.
Thank you, Supervisor. Did quite a bit the last couple weeks since our last board meeting. I had a discussion with Barbara Browning, who's with the California Center for Rural Policy out of Humboldt State University. Basically, it was a get-to-know-you type meeting. Hadn't had any discussions with her yet, but we specifically talked about some initiatives with building healthy communities around healthcare. Also had a Smith River Neighborhood Watch meeting, and the majority concern was expressed about Neighbors Helping Neighbors program. It's generally led through volunteer efforts. There's some in Gasky, some in Hyuchi, and in Smith River. The volunteer efforts often wane and flow depending on the volunteers' ability to organize folks within the community. The concerns that were expressed were ones that folks just aren't participating at a level that I think would bring the community to a level of preparedness if natural disaster occurred. So promising to bring back this discussion to Neighborhood Watch, I think there's some improvements that we can make. I'm not sure necessarily on the county side, but with additional outreach to see if we could find a level of volunteers and generate some interest again, because this is an important program for us, especially if there were a disaster to occur, whether it's a tsunami or a fire. Attended the North Coast Unified Air Quality Management District meeting in Eureka. We concentrated on our budget for this coming fiscal year, and then also had a great deal of debates around increasing rates for burn permits in the area. Where rates were increased specifically for those permits, but the majority increase was seen for commercial operations. Had a radio interview with Paul Kritz, as was mentioned earlier today. He's invited me back, and hopefully we could do that in the next couple weeks. Also attended the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority meeting, where a great deal of discussions being had around recycling and the bottlenecks that we're seeing right now with the flow recycling that is essentially sitting in warehouses throughout the state of California or parked on ships in our bays because there's no place to send all this recycling that we're currently collecting. It's actually not just an issue for the state of California, but it's also a nationwide issue. And unfortunately, the laws that have been created around recycling aren't necessarily right now conducive to have an outlet for those materials to go this day with a dry up of that market. So we're going to have a lot of debate to come on how to deal with this problem, not only on a local level, but a state level and a national level. As was mentioned, with our other supervisors, attended the California State Association of Counties meeting, where I represent the County of Del Norte. As Supervisor Cowan mentioned, had meetings with both Wood and McGuire. Great discussions with us too, specifically with McGuire on the No Place Like Home initiative. I think it's important. It's one that's coming, and also the $75,000 that will be coming to us shortly to look at alternative ways to house our homeless and mentally ill here in our area. But it will definitely help our Department of Health and Human Services really scope out other ways that we could support and also apply for some dollars to support the services. I believe Supervisor Cowan mentioned the meeting with Paul Schneider with Federal Highways Administration. There's extremely informative discussion. It's one that we do need to continue. Paul is a representative for Federal Highways in the state of California, but he has direct line of communications with Mitz Momano, who's the director for this region, and then also direct communications with Washington, D.C. Obviously, with those discussions, we're pushing for legislation that would specifically carve out rural set-asides for federal highway improvements, state highway improvements as it relates to last chance grade. That's where the focus and energy went for that discussion. And then, as Supervisor Hemmingson mentioned, had very long discussions with Deputy Director Stafford Lair with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife over several issues involving grazing leases, involving what to do about elk issues. The focus around elk has been from a long-standing put on the brakes type push by environmental groups, both not only here in Del Norte County, but also outside our area. That has caused not only the California Fish and Game Commission, but the Department of Fish and Wildlife to revisit their draft management plan for elk throughout the state of California, but also to revisit their environmental impact statement, which will allow us various opportunities to harvest. One thing that I see coming out of this draft management plan and potentially being proposed through the next round of the environmental impact statements is a look at programs that will allow increased harvest or depredation on elk within our area. As you are well aware, especially in District 5, in District 3, and District 4, the Roosevelt elk issues and its impact on what remains of our agricultural lands has been huge. Dealing with it and those populations under the current scenario as established by the Fish and Wildlife Department is not effective at all. were failing miserably. So we are staying on point for those activities, not only with our farmers, but also with those individuals that are impacted just going out to their car in the morning. In addition, as Supervisor Berkowitz and Supervisor Gitlin mentioned, walked the coastal walk with Nick Harrios, which was the final leg of his 1,225-mile journey across the state of California from May 2001 to last weekend Saturday. It was about a 5.5-mile walk from the mouth of the Smith River at the ship ashore north. It was incredible visiting with somebody who's made it his passion to advertise the beauty of our coast, and more importantly, feels that after all the trails he's walked in the world, and he has walked just about every trail out there in the world, he rates the California Coastal Trail, and more importantly, this section in Northern California from about San Francisco north, as the top 3 in the world of coastal trails. As we discussed with C. Higgins, who's the director of the California Coastal Trails Association, this is something we definitely want to support and advertise. They often culminate in activities that promote areas like Del Norte County and the focus of activities on these walking trails. I'd like to see if we could do that going into the future. I did have discussion with Supervisor Berkowitz that day on how we might revisit some of these opportunities with the association and possible funding avenues that we could possibly share some of those costs with our city and our Chamber of Commerce. Also, as Supervisor Hemmingson mentioned, attended the Youth Summit, which was quite fascinating and, more importantly, engaging with our youth is so incredibly important. I know my wife Lisa, as a high school teacher, really drives me to engage our students on a daily basis, which I do. As soon as I come home, I get an earful, but that's just part of life these days, and growing up with a high schooler and a middle schooler at home. Attended yesterday a meeting of the First 5 Families Commission, where I sit as a board of director, and the majority of the discussion we had was around the future of our Wonder Bus, which is a mobile bus for literacy on wheels that we have here. Unfortunately, the Wonder Bus has fell on hard times, and it's an aging vehicle that may need to be decommissioned. I believe very strongly that it provides an incredibly valuable resource to our community in delivering literacy and products around literacy, like books for our youngsters in that 0 to 6 age class into our outlying areas like Gasky, Hyuchi, Smith River, and Klamath. First 5 Family Commission is working hard to figure out a home for the Wonder Bus and how it might be utilized, given that there could be potentially $25,000+ of fixes to get that bus operating again. It's going to be a hard discussion because I know it's a beloved program by folks here in this community. And lastly, I'd like to end, I know there's been a great deal of focus and discussion at various lists last week, May 16th. There was a meeting at the Lighthouse Inn to discuss that ADA project, where we would look to have traffic improvements within that area. It's approximately a $3.7 million project for our area. It would address issues around the harbors with pedestrians and sidewalks and crossing Highway 101, so you don't have to get smushed or risk your life potentially. A good discussion, but I definitely encourage the board and the city council. There was a lack of presence by both at the meeting, and I know it's been high on the radar for those folks in District 1 and District 5. Please try to prioritize that, and more importantly, get it out on the radar of Caltrans. We need all the support we could get for that $3.7 million to take care of those safety improvements and traffic calming efforts around pedestrians in that corridor. And with that, we're adjourned.